Hi there, I'm Ben Pearson. Welcome to the Tech World Human Skills Podcast. Every episode we talk through how to thrive in the tech world, not just survive. And if the podcast is not enough for you and you want weekly tips delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for the Elevated You newsletter. Head over to www.techworldhumanskills.com to sign up. Hi everybody and welcome to the Tech World Human Skills Podcast. We've got another great show for you again today and it's a little bit different. We're going to do a questions show. Now, to help me out with this, we've got a guest back that I've had on the show. This is his third time and we've got some questions that we're going to fire at each other. So, please, can you welcome to the show Ben Caird. Ben, it is lovely to have you with us.
Great to be back in Pierce Studios.
Do you mean that?
Well, you asked me and I felt obliged.
you didn't have an excuse.
No.
Well, it is brilliant to have you here. Now, this, as I said, this is your third appearance on the show. So, for those that don't know you, do you just want to introduce yourself? But don't go on because it is your third. It is your third one.
Thanks for your feedback. Yeah, I guess really simply, I'm in the software world and I lead large groups sort of globally that do support and operational work, and I've done a version of that for, well, over 20 years in the industry.
Yeah, well, welcome to the show, and we've got some questions that we're going to go through with each other. So not a particular topic that we're focusing on this time.
Yeah.
So, first question, can I come at you with the first question? Let's get going. People talk about mentors all the time. Is it really worth getting a mentor?
Yes.
Next question.
Yeah. I think, so where my mind goes to with that one is, in my career, at different points, I've really focused on mentors, and then at different points I haven't, right? And I think it depends where you are, what you're trying to achieve, and kind of what's going on in your life at a point in time. So I don't think everyone should feel obliged to have mentors all the time. It works for some, it doesn't work for others. My personal experience was if I use previous company, I had two mentors. One was in the sort of talent acquisition and training and development world, a VP of that. He was in the UK, and then a VP in the US who was more in the support arena. And so for me, a couple of things, I suppose. One, how did I get him? Might be interesting.
Yeah. Our
listeners will be the judge. With that, I had some level of relationship with each of them, and I'd met them and chatted. And in those instances, I think I dropped them a note and said, look, I'm going to put half an hour in with you if that's okay. The context is I'd quite like you to be a mentor. I won't be offended if you can't make the time type thing, but here's what I'm thinking about career-wise, and I'd love to spend some time with you if that's okay. And then I suppose as part of that, I then met with them. I always think like you need a bit of a speed date with a mentor.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you need to make sure the dynamic works for both of you. So normally I would say, can we meet for half an hour, see how we get on, and we both can kind of tap out at that point or take it forward. And then I suppose in terms of the actual process then, I got a load of value. Some of that was their reading lists and their experience. They were in very different functions. They were also in different geographies. So I got quite a few benefits in those regards. And as it turned out, I think I went for a role, and I think I had some pretty strong advocacy through them. And I think the thing you don't always realise is if you're showing up well and you're following up on those sessions and you're driving them and you're proactive, people will talk about you in the background. And I think unfortunately or fortunately, a very long career, you see some of that kind of pay forward.
Yeah.
But I think in the short term, you don't necessarily realise that people chat in the background, and it can just be, oh, they show up really well, they're really good. And it's just these shortcuts in the mind, isn't it? Ben equals a good guy.
Yeah.
And that can help.
So not only are you learning from them, but they're helping your career out and advancing your career out.
Yeah, and you can be intentional with that if you want to be.
Yeah.
Or you can just take it at face value,
Yeah. Yeah, from my perspective, if I think about it now in the context of having left the corporate world and doing my own thing, I would struggle without mentors, and I have got so many mentors that have helped me out, and all with their own specialist skills. So right at the beginning, when I was setting up like the visual identity, and I honestly, I probably paid for somebody. Well, not probably, I paid for somebody, but they were like a mentor of, you can do this, you can't. There's other people then that are probably also paid mentors, like my accountant, like what the heck I can and can't do. But then there's other people that are helping me out. Like I'm working with a chap, Seb, who's brilliant at the moment. When I say working with, I'm not paying him. He's helping me out with all my marketing and all of that kind of stuff, which I know nothing about whatsoever.
Right.
And he's helping me out.
There's an angle there for Seb.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. So Seb Greenwood. So so there's all of these people that have got so much that they can share with you that help you get better and succeed.
And it's probably not one for now, but there's kind of mentor and coaching, right? And I think in your case, I guess going from corporate world where you've got particular skills in an area to running your business where you need skills in all of the areas, don't you? And so you've got that. You're trying to learn all the time as well. Yes, you're paying for some of that, but some of it you'll be able to do yourself, and then some of it you can you can be a bit more proactive in your approaches, knowing the questions you'll be asked and the things that you need to do.
Yeah, and it makes such a difference to be able to talk to people, in the age of, I guess, ChatGPT or Googling. Like, if you know the question, then you can get the answer, but it's seeing between the lines. That's when you're talking to a human. They're like, well, you're heading that. Well, actually, you don't want to head that way. You want to head a few degrees the other way. And these are the things. So it's that seeing between the lines.
You can. I always think about science and art. You can learn the science. You can read a book. Or you can go and become a chartered accountant. Yeah. But you won't have the 20 years of learning the craft and all of the detail behind it. And while you can't get that because you haven't done those 20 years, you can get some value, can't you, and accelerate a little bit. So, yeah.
Well, great question. Let's move on, shall we? Next question. I think, have you got some?
I have. We have our questions here. So you have transitioned from the corporate world.
I have.
Into running a small business.
I have.
How have you found that?
Hard. That's the first thing. Do you know what? It's one of those things that people are really interested in and ask me all the time. When I meet people and they say, "What do you do?" and I say, "Oh, this is what I did and this is what I do now." That's one of the first questions they ask is, what's the difference? And a few things sort of come to my mind. First thing, the variety of what I do now. I mean, one of the reasons I left the corporate world was I felt I was in my swim lane a little bit. This is what I needed to do, and I was a bit bored of being in that swim lane, and I wanted to do something different. And so, if I just think about, let's say, the last 48 hours of what I've been doing. Wednesday night, so we're recording this on a Friday. Wednesday night, I was out at an event, a community event, networking, having some great conversations with some brilliant people. Then I got up yesterday, Thursday, recorded another podcast, the episode that's coming out soon on imposter syndrome. So I recorded that episode. Right. Then I was doing I'm looking at doing some more marketing, as I was talking about, and some software that I'm going to use. So I had a meeting on how to use that. Then the next thing was a sales call, looking at doing some technical storytelling, and then another consultancy sales call. So literally the things, and having to do my accounts in the middle of this as well. Yeah. And so the variety of what you do is brilliant, and therefore the things you get to learn. The flip side to that being, it can be really overwhelming because there's so many things that I have no idea what I'm doing, and you've got to figure it out as you go along, which sort of going back to that mentors question, I would be nowhere if it wasn't for the people that I could talk to and ask these questions. So it can be massively overwhelming. And then the other thing I'd say, I miss the people. It can be pretty lonely. I loved being in a team when you're with great people, you're having a laugh, great people, having a laugh, bit of a shared goal, energizing each other, really love that. And you don't get to do that when you're on your own. Yeah. And that is one of the things that I think I missed the most.
It would have been nice if it was like that when we worked together. especially
sometimes
the
there's horrible people you work with.
Yeah.
There's horrible teams.
Yeah, you can't have it all the time, can you? So,
But then I'd flip that and then go, but it's really rewarding. Like
yeah,
when you don't know what you're doing, you're a bit lonely, and then it starts to click, and you figure something out, and you've made some good decisions.
yeah,
And then you do some great work with a customer, and you see the impact that you've had. That is really rewarding. And so
yeah.
I would take
Highs and lows.
I would take the high. The highs are high enough that they mitigate the lows. So on balance, really glad I did it. Learning so much, but it's not hard. And the final thing is
Not easy.
it's not easy. And I had no idea how little I'd be doing in the early days. How little I'd be doing the thing I want to do versus selling the thing I want to do. Because when you start a new business, you kind of think, well, I'm going to do this because I want to help people with their human skills. I want to help them with their technical storytelling. Or I want to help with their influence, with their impact. But nobody knows you're there. And you've just got to build
develop that muscle
and that demand and the pipeline. So you spend so much time doing sales and development. And I didn't think that I'd be doing that. That's not what I planned to do, but that's what I needed and need to do. So, there you go.
It is we probably won't go too deep, but your why and your personal mission, I suppose, at least all of those things are congruent with that.
Yeah.
Even if they're not your, you haven't got loads of proven capability in the past, right?
Yeah.
You're learning some of those skills.
Yeah, and
it's exciting.
Yeah,
Seat
really
of the pants.
exciting. Yeah,
I
really
suspect
exciting.
your positivity and resilience have been two attributes that have served you well.
They have. I can tell you
Yes.
that. And as we start to move, I'll be honest. As you start to move into the winter, it starts getting dark and rainy and cold.
Yeah.
You're in a home office on your own a little bit.
Yeah.
God, that is a test of the resilience. Prefer the summer, that's for sure.
It has an effect, doesn't it?
Right, let's go to another question.
Okay.
I'm going to come back to you. Is it worth investing in my network? And how should I do it? Now, I'm not talking about your router or whether you're on fibre broadband.
I was going to say, it's fibre to the house is well worth it.
Yeah, and Ubiquity routers, wireless, really good.
You've lost me. But yeah. Is it worth it? Yes.
Yeah.
I think that this is a huge question, but let me give you a couple of thoughts on it, right? I think it varies. So there is a digital network, often synonymous with LinkedIn. So there is that. So you can talk about presence online, can't you? And broadcasting messages and being present and following up and doing all of those things. I often think, I think my personality type and the way I'm wired, I tend to have fewer, deeper relationships in life generally. And actually, if I was to apply that from a network point of view, that's probably pretty consistent through my career. So I think that it absolutely is worth investing in your network. But that can be doing your job well and interacting with people, to a high standard with compassion throughout your career. Because actually, and we might, I suspect you might have some examples in this area, but it's funny how you don't talk to somebody for 5 years, but you got on so well that it's like you've never been apart, and it can be really helpful and open doors. So I would say that it's well worth having a network. At different points in my career, I've been quite intentional, maybe through mentors or through trying to get different experiences in different areas. And so that opens doors for you. I've used networks to influence for sure in different roles. I've had mentors or deeper relationships with people in the right areas. Some of that is lucky. Some of it was intentional. And then I guess most recently, if I think about kind of how my network has broadened, a few years ago now, I started as a school or local advisor, they're called now, but school governor, people would know it as. And that's just really interesting because I've opened up my network, if you want to look at it that way, because it's still a professional environment.
Yeah.
Hugely. There's all sorts of people on the board from all walks of life. And that's, for me, I kind of look at that as a network, and I learn a bit more about their lives and what they do and how that fits into the world. So I think probably for me, as I go forward, I'm going to be just thinking about broadening my network beyond technology, actually, because I'm quite you talked about, interestingly, a corporate word, swim lanes, earlier.
Yeah.
For me, I'm thinking about some of that breadth of experience, not necessarily directly career, but I think is it worth it? The short answer is absolutely yes.
And I remember when we were working together last time, so this is years ago, you were really good at that, and I think what you were really good at doing was you were good at figuring out, to get this thing done that I want to get done, these are all of the influencers and players, and then intentionally going out to them, building relationships with them, getting them on side, so that then the thing that you needed to get done could get done.
Yeah.
You didn't just try and get them all on one meeting, and go, can I do this thing?
Yeah.
We need to do this thing. You'd think intentionally about how you draw.
It's really, I think I'm all right at that. Thank you.
That's only one compliment I'm going to give you this episode.
Yeah, I'll write that down in the calendar. Yes. So I think there's network. I mean, that's kind of influence, isn't it? And it is using a form of network, I suppose. But yeah, in my experience, if you want to land a proposal with a team of 10 people, you probably want to pick 5 or 6 of them off and get them on side before you get into the meeting. It's those types of things. It's not always possible. It's much easier to talk about in a podcast than deliver in real life.
Yeah.
But as a principle, and certainly when I've been on song, then I would absolutely, I wouldn't leave things to chance. I'd kind of work the crowd, often one by one or in smaller groups, depending.
Yeah.
And I think you can apply some of those theories to if you talk about human change management, trying to get people to evolve their behaviour consistently across a group. It's a similar sort of thing. You work out who to influence. You focus in on key people.
Yeah.
I believe I may be rambling slightly.
No.
So I can read you like a book.
No, never. No, I was just thinking about it also from if I think about my career now. I think that a network is super important. Like, I would be bankrupt if it wasn't for my network, and that was through to your point, your reputation of trying to do a great job for the last 20 years, and therefore having people on the network. And then when they saw what I was doing now, because of that reputation, they were like, come and work with us because I've seen what you've done before. So I would literally be bankrupt, and I'd be back in the corporate world if it wasn't for my network. So thank you to everybody in my network that has helped me out, as I've started the business. So that is killer. If I think about jobs I've got in the past, so often it's been about my network. I remember once I was contracting, wanting to go back into full-time employment, and a chap that we both know well, Kev, was like, come and work for me. And this was a team that we ended up working in for many years together, working for Kev. And he's like, come and work for me. I was like, no, I want to go and do this other job. And he was like, okay, well, if you don't get that job, come and work for me. Again, just because he'd seen the reputation of what I'd done. And gave me a job, great job, working in a team. And we ended up working that team together and becoming leaders in that team, had a great career in that team. But that was all about my network and saying, you'd be a great fit for this job. And then the other thing I would say is just opportunities. So, for example, this is going back to the LinkedIn. So the digital network can be help. It's not the be all and end all by any means, but it can definitely help. Somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn. We had a chat over a Teams meeting. And now I'm going to be presenting at his event, the CIO Circle, coming up in November. That all just came from taking a call from somebody I didn't know, taking a punt, having a conversation. We got on well. There was some value to be had for both of us.
That's very cool.
And now, so 3 examples that I think really useful.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have huge experience sort of on the digital side, but that works well for sure. I think the thing that you said there really, if I was to summarise it down, it's kind of how we show up. And people talk about, as a leader, managing up, managing down, managing side, all these things. Actually, it's about how you show up. Do you come in? Are you positive? Are you can do? Do you get stuff done when you say you're going to? And people remember those things, right? And I think probably some of your storytelling, people remember how they feel, not just what happened in the meeting. So I think your energy, is a big part of growing a good network
Yeah,
as
do you,
well.
do you come in and drill holes, or do you come in and build up?
People do remember, I feel better after I spent time with that person, or I feel like I've had the energy sucked out of me. I mean, it is real life.
Yeah.
And I do think that's you have got the, more and more now, the online stuff, which is really, really important through LinkedIn. But I think that what we'll see with a lot more remote work, and you talked about loneliness as well, what we will see is there's still nothing better than spending time as humans together and sharing that energy.
Yeah.
And I think that will, I think we're already seeing it in a lot of companies, a bit more of a resurgence. To
Yeah.
Time in the office.
Brilliant question. Should we move on?
We should.
Whose turn is it? It is.
I think it could be me asking you about. So you have been coaching people with their technical storytelling for 2 years now.
Do you know, it's the 2-year birthday, November 1st, of me having left the corporate world and starting this up.
There you go. So what do you see most often that would impact and raise people's performance?
Yeah.
Or impact, maybe you would call it.
Yeah. It's so I have 2 years doing technical storytelling with folks. There are definitely a few things. Shall I bring out a couple of things that I see all the time? I'll bring out 3 things, because 3 things is good.
We like 3.
We like 3 things. First thing I would say, and this is particularly in the tech world, I call it be more Bambi.
Right.
And what I mean by that, right? If you think of a spectrum,
Fall over a lot.
if you think of a spectrum, right, of and on one end you've got a dictionary, right, a book,
Okay.
no emotion,
Visualize this.
Visualize this. You've got a book, no emotion in it. It's just an alphabetical list of words, right? Then at the other end of the spectrum, you've got something like the Bambi script or the Bambi film, right? Everybody in floods of tears, very emotional. His mum dies. Spoiler alert, but it's an old film.
Right.
Now, when we're talking in tech, if you think about that spectrum, quite often we kind of head a little bit too much towards the dictionary. It's very factual.
Speeds and feeds.
That's it. Here's the data. Here's the explaining. Here's the rationale. And we forget that the people we're talking to are people. And we were talking about that. You'll never forget how people make you feel. And we forget to engage with people emotionally. And we forget about the stories. We forget about the impact. And we go straight to the rationale and the data. So the first thing I'd say, a lot of people, when they're talking to people, be more Bambi. A great example, I was coaching a chap the other day who's like a principal software development engineer. And he had deliberately... he needed to give a talk on something to a load of developers, and he deliberately put nothing other than fact in there, right? And then he came on the course, and he started thinking, what was I thinking? Like, it was the dullest thing in the world. Yeah. And then he flipped it round and started thinking about, well, I could tell stories about when it went wrong. I could give examples of how bad it can be, how good it can be.
Yeah.
And he changed his approach. And the outcome of what he was delivering at the end was brilliant. He could be on stage at any conference, and the insight he was sharing and the way he was sharing it and the ability to recall it. And it was all from acknowledging, if I was a bit more Bambi, people would listen to me. So first thing, this is be more Bambi. Second thing, less is more. Like, we are obsessed with the curse of... Well, not obsessed. We've got the curse of knowledge. We know so much. Yeah. We've researched. We've learnt so much. And then we want to deliver that. So somebody asks us a question, and we don't just give the simple answer. We give the, but on a Tuesday that wouldn't work if it was dark. And we start thinking through all of that. And they were just asking a simple question, and we've given them everything. We've given them the white paper, and they wanted the tweet, right?
Yes.
And so it's thinking more about, actually, when they're asking this question, what is it I want them to remember? And I maybe only want them to remember 1 thing or 2 things or 3 things. I don't want them to remember 11 things or 27 things or 112 things, because they won't. But they might remember 1 or 2 things. So less is more. So often, be more Bambi, less is more. And then the final thing that has a massive impact is around the visual aids that people use.
Right.
And I talk a lot about the split brain problem, where basically people use their slides as their notes or a document. So their slides when they're talking to people is a load of bullet points. And what that does is it splits people's attention. So people are reading the notes. You're talking about bullet point A. They're reading bullet point F.
Yeah.
And not concentrating on either very well. And by taking this approach, all you've done is reduce your impact and reduce everything you're doing. So basically, simplify your slides and amplify your narrative. So if you've got a slide that amplifies what you're saying, thumbs up. If you've got a slide that diverts people entertainment, diverts people's attention, that's the word.
Easy for you to say.
Thank you. Let me say that again. So if you've got a slide that diverts attention, bad. If it amplifies what you're saying, good. And the majority of visual aids I come across are bad. And then suddenly somebody comes across that does them well, and you stand out head and shoulders above everybody else, and people remember what you say and are energized by what you say.
We've all got those in our minds.
Yeah.
The examples. Yeah. Is that I watch a bit of or follow Simon Sinek, and I suppose it's a bit of that start with why and then create that emotional connection, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It's powerful. Be more Bambi. I'm going to steal that.
Bit of alliteration goes a long way. Right, I've got a question for you.
Right.
Let's go to this one. Does success equal happiness?
No.
Because, like...
I mean, I wouldn't know.
You're the wrong person to ask. I should ask somebody
I've read
successful.
the answers now.
But because, like, it feels like, you know, the world's a little bit obsessed with high performance, success. There's podcasts on it. There's books on it. There's all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure we both watch and listen to a lot of those.
Yeah. So does success equal happiness?
I think the answer is no.
Okay.
I'm not sitting here saying I am success, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not either, to be clear.
So
saying you're not successful.
You could argue. You could argue. I probably shouldn't answer, right? But I think that what I would say is that the goals that I've had, when I've met those goals at different points, I don't suddenly switch on that happy switch. So I think that for me, you know, there's a few different things I've been looking and watching at the moment, but I think happiness is more around it's a choice and it's often the process. So I think success, you know, you get a high from achieving the widget, whatever that might be for you. But I think, you know, happiness is more around where you spend your time and the energy you get and how you can proportion your time. And I think that probably varies a bit. As I approach 50, I might have a different view around this than maybe I did 10, maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think happiness is a choice, and I think that the choices I'll be making certainly about where I spend my time will adjust as certainly over the next decade.
Yeah.
I don't know if that covers
it. Do you know what? It's reminded me. There was a study that I saw that I thought was really interesting, and it was a study done in Scandinavia. I forgot the exact details now, but a study done in Scandinavia on lottery winners.
Right.
And it was a study on whether people were happier when they've won the lottery.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody's thing is, you know, if I just had all of this money, that'd be awesome because I could go on holidays, I'd have the car I want, the house would be better, I wouldn't have to worry about this. I'd be so happy if I won the lottery.
Yes.
So they did a study on it, and the findings were brilliant, because what they found was if you were happy before you won the lottery, then you would be happy after you won the lottery.
Right.
If you were miserable before you won the lottery, you would be miserable after you won the lottery.
Good.
And actually, the lottery was inconsequential on your happiness.
Still take it then.
Yeah, because that's because you're happy before.
Okay.
But then you could be. But I just thought that's fascinating, yeah, because that is perceived success. Suddenly, I've got all the money, financial independence.
Yeah.
And actually, if you're not in a place where you're happy before, you're not happy. And I think maybe that's the same if you're really goal oriented with a career. Like, if I just got that job, then that would be awesome.
Certainly, because I'm quite. So the other thing we were talking about with some of this communication, if you remember, we did some work on insights in the past.
Discovery Insights.
With a very good lady.
Love it.
That helped it back at Microsoft. And I'm very red. So I'm very, I think the brick says, be brief, be bright, be gone, So I am quite red, quite like, get it done, boom, 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 boom. And I think the older I get, the more I'm thinking about a bit about the process, I suppose. And
okay.
I guess I'd give one example. I feel happier since I spend more time walking outside.
Okay.
Very, very simple. But then I think as you understand, well, actually, I'm not like before. I used to think that's a waste of my time. I'm going to drive the car, because that's an hour I've lost. Yeah. Now that's an hour for me. So there's quite a lot, I think, in terms of how you shift your mindset and how you choose to spend your time. Right?
Yeah.
I think that's, and it's the simple things, right? It can be sat in the garden with a cup of tea or just nice times. And I think that I'm looking at how I proportion my time and what I do that allows me to do that in the future as well. So don't know if that helps, but I don't think the two things equal each other. I think the older you get, the more you realise that. And if I could tell myself something, probably my younger self something, it might well be those two things are equal. Yeah.
So I've just glanced at the watch. We are at time. So let's wrap up for today. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming along. It's been brilliant fun. It has been great to have you sharing your wisdom, because you're quite so old.
And successful.
And successful. You're quite so old and successful.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming along. And I know you've got a cold today as well.
A little bit Barry White. Apologies for that. But,
either it's a cold or you had 13 pints last night. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely. It's Barry White without the talent. Yes.
And what I'd just say to everybody listening is we'll do another one of these. So if you've got any questions at all, let me know. And we can add them into the show. So give me a shout over email, over LinkedIn, direct message, whatever. Pop something in, and that would be brilliant to get some more questions. So final thing for me to say is just thank you so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Ben.
Well, there we go. Thanks for listening. Remember, if the podcast is not enough for you and you want weekly tips delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for the Elevated You newsletter. Head over to www.techworldhumanskills.com to sign up. Oh, and can you do me a favour? Could you subscribe to the podcast and rate the show? It really helps spread the word.